Because what's going on the floor can't happen if it's not right in the accounting room.
It's understanding the vision of who you're putting out in the court and why. Yes, they're losing games right now so that they don't have to lose as many games in the long term. The Detroit Pistons were in a position where they didn't have young talent. They were deprived of young talent. And at the beginning of our rebuild, our young core was Sekou Doumbouya, Luke Kennard, Bruce Brown.
Our guy Matthew's having a day here on the WoodwardSports.com chat that bring back Stan Van Gundy. At least he got us into the playoffs.
Build up and wall.
And we might have been losing in the first round, but hey, that's better than the BS we're pulling now. Well, Matt, see, okay, because you're kind of the anti-Brad Holmes guy. So this becomes a teaching moment for me, Matt. And again, I appreciate you tapping into the show. So it works like this. You say, bring back Stan Van Gundy. We made the playoffs. Matt, you realize last year you paid Blake Griffin $30 million on your salary cap last year. Blake Griffin hadn't been here for a minute. You know what I'm saying?
It's been a while.
That's the consequences to those types of moves. That we're seeing that right now with the Lions. And when you're anti-Brad Holmes, the exact same things are playing out. We saw it with the Red Wings. Like, I don't know why people can't see. I mean, I guess because it's unseen. It's not on the court, Terry. And I know you hate it. You're part of the problem because you're an opponent of it. But it is, Terry.
I'm not an opponent. You talk about it all the damn time.
Because, Terry, it's as important as what's going on the floor. Because what's going on the floor can't happen if it's not right in the accounting room. And when you pay Blake Griffin $30 million last year, when he's been gone for 2 years, Terry, you can't win like that.
Well, beyond that too, Neil, just to expand on that, when you're talking about, like, it's not just about having that vision and that understanding of what you're doing in the accounting room. It's understanding the vision of who you're putting out in the court and why. When Stan Van Gundy traded for Blake Griffin, when he went and made that acquisition, the entire reason behind it was to save his job, hopefully make a run at the playoffs, and to see if something can happen. Whereas with Troy Weaver, he's here to build the Detroit Pistons. Right now, we might not be winning games. We might be in a position where, we're towards the bottom of the Eastern Conference, but it's done so because they're actually trying to build the Detroit Pistons. And to your point, they have to go through some points like the Detroit Lions did with Brad Holmes is doing, with building down, with tearing down the scrapbooks, like tearing down the salary cap. The reality of it is the Detroit Pistons were in a position where they didn't have young talent. They were deprived of young talent. And at the beginning of our rebuild, our young core was Sekou Doumbouya, Luke Kennard, Bruce Brown. That was your young core. That was your young core. That was just 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Now you have Cade Cunningham, Sadiq Bey, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, Isaiah Stewart. That's just off the top of my head. Not even naming Isaiah Livers that you found in the second round. The whole point is, yes, they're losing games right now so that they don't have to lose as many games in the long term.
Well, and again, Terry, to this point, next year you're looking at a situation where you got about $70-ish million in cap space too, because this year you still have $20 million in dead money. You got the Kemba Walker buy. Like, everyone loves Jalen Duren, right? Everyone loves it, right? The price was taking Kemba Walker to make that deal happen.
Yep.
That was the price. And look, Troy Weaver's not going to say it. No GM's going to say it. But you're not. I'm not going to say you're punting on the season, but you're restricted. That's factually correct to say you're restricted.
They had the opportunity to spend cap money this offseason, and they actively chose to take on dead salary and to focus on the young assets and the players that they have in-house. They ultimately decided to punt some of that cap space that they could have used this offseason to next offseason. To your point, Neil, you're right. They did say and actively choose to make this roster worse in exchange for having someone like Jalen Duren in that long-term outlook. But again, it's just about, what's the vision, what's the direction, and that's the difference. Is because, during that 2010s era, even though, like, say what you will, about, like, the Blake Griffin move, at least it was like a form of direction. Because before then, for like years, it was just, there was no direction. It was hoping we could get to the playoffs. It was maybe this Andre Drummond, Reggie Jackson pairing will finally get us over the hump. So, like, if you want to go back to Stan Van and you want to go back to that, by all means, but like you're just missing the entire point of what's happening.
Let me address the Stan Van Gundy thing. One, that team he had then, would it make the playoffs today? No. In today's NBA, that team would not make the playoffs. And plus, it had no future.
Exactly.
This team probably won't make the playoffs, but at least it has a future. You have building blocks that are going to carry you some 4 or 5 years down the road.
And in today's day and age, Terry, cap space is a building block.
Yes, it is.
I know you hate
sometimes
it, but it is.
I do hate it, but I've been told over and over and over, and not by you, that sometimes it's better to make a move where you don't get a player, but you get cap space in the NBA. And the other thing is, this team at least has a future. You can see these guys growing together. With Stan Van Gundy, what they did is they brought in pieces to try to be competitive then, but once they were done, there was no future. There was no way this team could bridge into a championship team. So you can keep Stan Van Gundy.
And Terry, and I believe it was MC Breed who said it best, there ain't no future in your front.
That's true.
By the way, you know where Stan Van was last night? In Boston.
calling the game.
Not on the coaching staff. He was on the TNT booth. Doing a great job there, by the way, but I think that fits him better than coaching.
Animated.
WoodwardSports.com chat thread. Cheech says Neil is always the monopoly banker. I guess so.
We should get you a little hat.
We should.
Yeah.
We should do promos with you and PJ Fleck.
Does he have a monocle too?
Yeah, I was going to say.
I was just going to
Neil
ask
Roll
you that.
needs the monocle.
Yeah,
I was going to
Let's
ask
see
you
if we can get the accounting department here to get you a monocle and a little hat.
Top hat.
Dirty Dr. D, WoodwardSports.com chat thread. This is all Ben Wallace's fault. Signed Sam Flannel. So it lives on. Sam Flannel even lives on.
Sam Flannel's lucky he hasn't said any of those Ben Wallace takes while I've been in the studio, by the way. He's been very lucky on that.
Right. How about on the court? Sadiq Bey, Cade Cunningham. This is a very big year for Sadiq Bey. I haven't heard a lot of people talk about that, but this is a very, very big year for Sadiq Bey. Because as I like to say, and I said this, I'm a big Isaiah Livers guy.
Yep.
Big Isaiah Livers guy. And he can do a lot of those same things. I'm just saying, I know he's a different player, I know he's a different size, but he can do a lot of those things. ... You know, this
And
is the
play
NBA.
better defense.
This is the NBA, man. That's how this works, Sean. So let's tackle Sadiq Bey first. This year, what do you expect?
I think the reality of Sadiq Bey and the big thing with pressure on him, to your point, it's not just the fact of, Sadiq's a great shooter, Sadiq's a great scorer, but can he do it on a consistent basis? There's a lot of guys in this league that from time to time can put up 22 points a night or put up, crazy 30, 40 points. But the ones that are really good, the ones that, bring home the big bucks, the ones that, win in this league are the ones that can consistently go out and score on a night-to-night basis. For Sadiq, you have to eliminate those games from your calendar where you have a box score where it's 1 of 8 or 1 of 9 from the field. And the other thing too, the thing that's great about guys like Cade Cunningham is the fact that if the shot's not working, he has other aspects of his game and things that he can go to that still affect the team and still brings winning brings winning elements to the court. So for Sadiq, if the shot's not falling, what are you doing to help the team win? How are you affecting the game beyond just that level? So I think for Sadiq, to your point, Neil, it's for Sadiq, in my opinion, it's figuring out where exactly he is in the pecking order. A lot of people think it's like this dynamic duo of Cade and Sadiq, and like that's the core that we're building around. But the reality of it is if there's an opportunity to bring in someone better or more talented down the road, I mean, this is a business. This is the NBA. Troy Weaver's going to take that opportunity if he can. So I think for Sadiq, it's we've seen the ability and we've seen the glimpses of being able to create his own offense. Do that on a consistent basis.
One other factor with this, from this point forward, not only can he hit a consistent shot, but can he hit a shot with 1:35 left on the clock or with 25 seconds left in the clock? Because in the NBA, here's the dirty little secret. There's a bunch of dudes that can shoot. But you put them in that same situation
where you get the blame if you miss.
Right.
Yep.
They're like passing it off. That basketball turns into a pumpkin. And it's wobbling all around when they shoot. It misses and it bounces up into the fifth row. So can you take that shot when it matters?
Right.